I woke up one day and was having vision issues, could hardly see, knocked out my hearing, which threw off my equilibrium, my balance, and I couldn't walk, and I had vasculitis.
For years, Ashton Kutcher was Hollywood's golden boy, the charming prankster from That 70s Show, the star of romantic comedies, and a tech investor who turned his fame into fortune. But behind that easy smile and confident demeanor, few knew that Ashton was silently battling something that would change his life forever. When news of his devastating diagnosis finally surfaced, fans across the world were left stunned, not just by the illness itself, but by how long he had been hiding it. Kutcher's story isn't just about fame and success. It's about pain, resilience, and a man's quiet struggle to hold on while the world watched him perform, unaware of the storm within. In interviews, his voice trembled as he admitted that he'd lost his vision, hearing, and balance for nearly a year, and no one outside his closest circle even knew. That revelation shocked Hollywood, forcing everyone to see him not as a movie star, but as a human being facing something terrifying. Now, as Ashton steps away from the spotlight, many wonder if this is truly goodbye. His journey has been full of highs and lows, from his early TV days and marriage to Demi Moore, to his emotional second act as a devoted husband, father, and philanthropist. But this diagnosis has changed everything. So what really happened to Ashton Kutcher? How did he survive something that could have ended it all? And what message did he leave behind for his fans as he began saying goodbye? Before the world knew him as Ashton Kutcher, he was just a small-town kid from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with dreams far bigger than his surroundings. Born on February 7, 1978, Ashton grew up in a working-class family, learning early about struggle and sacrifice. His father worked in a factory, and his mother held multiple jobs to keep the family afloat. But one moment in his childhood changed everything. When his twin brother Michael was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and a heart condition. Watching his brother fight for his life instilled in Ashton a deep sense of empathy and determination that would shape everything he did. After high school, Ashton enrolled at the University of Iowa, studying biochemical engineering, hoping to one day help people like his brother. But fate had different plans. A talent scout spotted him at a bar, and before long he was on his way to New York City to pursue modeling. His charm and easygoing nature landed him gigs with Calvin Klein, but it was television that truly called his name. In 1998, Ashton landed the role of Michael Kelso on That 70s Show, and overnight, everything changed. His goofy grin, boyish charm, and impeccable comedic timing made him an instant fan favorite. But behind the laughter, Ashton remained grounded, never forgetting where he came from. While fame could have easily consumed him, he saw it as an opportunity, a stepping stone to something greater. As his popularity grew, Ashton took his talents to the big screen. Films like Dude, Where's My Car? The Butterfly Effect and No Strings Attached showcased his range, from comedy to intense drama. Yet even at the peak of his career, Ashton wasn't content with being just another actor. His curious mind and natural intelligence drove him to explore the world of technology and entrepreneurship. Long before celebrities invested in startups, Ashton was already ahead of the curve. Through his firm, A-Grade Investments, he backed major companies like Airbnb, Uber, Spotify, and Skype, turning his Hollywood earnings into a multi-million-dollar tech empire. But despite the success, there was a part of him that fame couldn't fill. After years of fast-paced living and high-profile relationships, Ashton sought something deeper. His marriage to Demi Moore made headlines everywhere. Their age difference, their fame, and their struggles. Behind the glitz, their relationship was plagued by heartbreak and loss, including a tragic miscarriage that left both deeply scarred. When their marriage ended, Ashton faced harsh media scrutiny, with tabloids painting him as the villain. That period of his life was dark, a turning point that forced him to step back and reevaluate who he was. It was then that he reconnected with Mila Kunis, his former co-star and someone who had known the real Ashton long before the fame. Their friendship blossomed into love, and for the first time, Ashton found peace in simplicity, in being a husband and a father rather than just a star. However, Just as life seemed to stabilize, fate struck again. Strange symptoms began to appear, blurring vision, loss of hearing, and dizziness that doctors struggled to explain. What started as small, ignorable signs soon became impossible to overlook. Ashton's body was sending him a message, one he couldn't ignore. No one knew it then, but Ashton Kutcher was facing the fight of his life. Ashton Kutcher was used to pressure. From long filming schedules to public controversies, he had always handled challenges with a grin and a sharp wit. But this time, something was different. It wasn't another Hollywood rumor or career setback. It was his own body that was betraying him. At first, the symptoms were small. He began noticing that his vision would blur occasionally, as if the world around him was fading in and out. Soon after, he started losing his balance, tripping over small steps and feeling dizzy for no reason. The most alarming sign came when his hearing began to fade, and he realized he couldn't recognize familiar voices. For someone who thrived on communication and energy, the silence was terrifying. Doctors ran countless tests, searching for answers. Months passed without clarity, leaving Ashton in a state of confusion and fear. He later revealed that he had been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder known as vasculitis, a condition that inflames the blood vessels, cutting off oxygen supply to vital organs and nerves. In Ashton's case, it had attacked his eyes, ears, and balance system. The diagnosis hit him like a brick wall. He had always seen himself as strong, active, and in control, someone who could handle anything life threw his way. But this illness stripped all that away. It took me almost a year to regain my vision, my hearing, and my balance, Ashton shared in a deeply emotional interview. You don't really appreciate it until it's gone. During that year, Ashton disappeared from the public eye. He kept his condition a secret, choosing to fight quietly while the world speculated about his absence. Even close friends had no idea how serious things were. Behind closed doors, he was undergoing treatments, enduring pain, and forcing himself to believe that recovery was possible. His wife, Mila Kunis, became his anchor, the one who refused to let him give up. Mila's quiet strength held their family together during the hardest nights. She stayed by his side when he couldn't walk straight, helped him relearn balance exercises, and reminded him of the importance of patience. Ashton later admitted that her unwavering support was what kept him alive, emotionally and physically. She was my rock, he said. When everything around me felt like it was falling apart, she reminded me who I was. Despite the struggle, Ashton refused to surrender. His optimism, the same trait that made him beloved on screen, became his greatest weapon. He started meditating, eating clean, and focusing on his children, finding strength in small victories. Every morning he woke up able to see a little clearer or hear a little better was a blessing. Slowly but surely he began to rebuild himself. When he finally spoke publicly about his diagnosis, it wasn't for sympathy. He wanted to inspire others. He wanted people to understand that illness doesn't discriminate. Even those who seem to have it all can be fighting invisible battles. If you wake up healthy, that's a gift, he told viewers. Don't take it for granted. I didn't realize how fragile life was until it all started to slip away. His openness sparked a wave of support from fans worldwide. People praised his bravery and vulnerability, calling him an example of resilience in the face of fear. But for Ashton, it was never about fame anymore. He had stared at his own mortality, and it had changed him. The man who once lived for the spotlight was now learning to live for gratitude, family, and peace. The diagnosis had taken much from him, but it also gave him something unexpected, a renewed purpose. After his terrifying battle with vasculitis, Ashton Kutcher's life changed in ways even he couldn't have predicted. The man who once thrived on movie sets and red carpet appearances found peace in quiet moments, early mornings with his children, long walks on his farm, and time spent away from flashing cameras. For the first time in decades, he wasn't chasing roles, deals, or fame. He was chasing something far more meaningful: peace, purpose, and gratitude. Ashton began focusing more on philanthropy and building a legacy beyond Hollywood. Through his organization Thorn, which he co-founded with Demi Moore, he dedicated his energy to fighting the online exploitation of children. Long before his illness, he had poured his heart into this mission, but now it carried a deeper meaning. His personal brush with vulnerability had ignited an even stronger desire to protect others. "When life reminds you how fragile everything is," he said in a heartfelt speech, "you start to ask yourself what kind of impact you want to leave behind." He also began mentoring young entrepreneurs, using his business knowledge to help others succeed in tech and innovation. His once fast-paced ambition was replaced by purpose-driven leadership. He no longer cared about being the richest or most famous. He cared about being useful. In interviews, Ashton often spoke about how his diagnosis gave him clarity. "I realized I could lose everything tomorrow. My sight, my hearing, even my life. So what matters is what you give while you're still here." His relationship with Mila Kunis also deepened through the storm. They became partners in every sense, not just in love, but in purpose. Together, they raised funds for humanitarian causes, supported families in crisis, and prioritized time with their children above all else. They wanted to show their kids that strength isn't about fame or success, but about kindness, resilience, and love. Yet, even as Ashton appeared stronger, fans couldn't help but notice that he had quietly stepped away from many of his on-screen commitments. While he still appeared occasionally, his focus had clearly shifted away from Hollywood. Rumors began swirling. Was Ashton Kutcher preparing to retire for good? When asked, his answer was simple and reflective. "I'm not retiring from life. I'm just choosing how to live it differently." Those words struck a chord with millions. They came from a man who had faced the fragility of his own existence and emerged wiser, calmer, and more human. Still, the emotional weight of his journey was undeniable. In private, Ashton admitted that the diagnosis left lasting effects. His hearing and balance never fully returned to normal, and fatigue sometimes lingered. But instead of focusing on what he lost, he focused on what he gained. Perspective. He learned that slowing down wasn't weakness. It was a chance to truly see life like friends. And former co-stars often describe Ashton now as quieter and more grounded. Gone is the wild energy of the young prankster who once ruled MTV's Punk'd. In his place stands a man who has been through fire and emerged softer, wiser, and full of gratitude. He spends more time writing, producing, and mentoring rather than chasing leading roles. For many fans, it feels like Ashton Kutcher is slowly saying goodbye to the Hollywood version of himself, the glamorous image that once defined him. But in truth, he's simply saying hello to the man he was always meant to be. His story reminds everyone that even in tragedy, there can be transformation. Through his pain, Ashton found peace. Through his illness, he rediscovered purpose. And through it all, he showed that sometimes life's hardest moments can reveal the truest parts of who we are. Ashton Kutcher has never been one to make dramatic exits, but those close to him say his quiet withdrawal from the spotlight speaks louder than any farewell speech could. Over the past few years, his appearances have become fewer, his interviews more introspective, and his focus entirely different. It's as if Ashton has been preparing to say goodbye, not with tears or regret, but with gratitude and grace. His diagnosis changed him in ways only those who've faced mortality can understand. Once he was known for his fast-paced energy, juggling acting, producing, investing, and philanthropy all at once. Now he's learned to value stillness. Ashton often shares that every sunrise feels like a new blessing, every laugh with his children like a gift he doesn't take for granted. When you've almost lost your senses, literally, you start sensing life differently, he once said with a gentle smile. While Hollywood continues to move at full speed, Ashton has embraced a slower rhythm. He spends his days between family, advocacy, and personal reflection. His conversations now revolve less around upcoming projects and more around purpose, what it means to leave behind something meaningful. Even his social media presence reflects that transformation. Gone are the flashy updates, replaced by heartfelt messages and causes close to his heart. Behind the scenes, friends say Ashton's greatest wish is simple: to live a long, peaceful life surrounded by love, not fame. He has stepped back from the idea of legacy measured in awards or net worth and turned instead to the legacy of kindness, resilience, and honesty. His life, once driven by ambition, is now powered by gratitude. Many fans were heartbroken to hear him speak candidly about his struggles and how he's been slowly winding down his career. Yet instead of sadness, Ashton's words carried hope. "I'm not afraid anymore," he confessed. "If this is the last chapter of my career, then I want it to be one filled with meaning, not noise." Those words revealed the depth of his transformation from Hollywood's carefree leading man to a reflective soul who found beauty in simplicity. He's also become an advocate for health awareness, encouraging others to take symptoms seriously and prioritize wellness over work. In recent years, he has used his platform to raise awareness about rare diseases, mental health, and self-care, topics he once overlooked in the whirlwind of success. Through his honesty, Ashton has turned personal pain into public purpose. His fans, many of whom grew up watching him on that '70s show, now see him as more than an entertainer. They see him as an example of courage. He faced something that could have destroyed him, yet he chose to rise above it with humility and strength. For those who admired his humor and charisma, this side of Ashton, raw, vulnerable, and wise, is perhaps his most inspiring role yet. In many ways, Ashton Kutcher's goodbye isn't a farewell to life or love, but to the constant chase that once defined him. He's letting go of the image the world built around him and embracing the peace he fought so hard to find. For the fans who watched his journey from laughter to pain and from pain to peace, it's a reminder that even heroes have to slow down. And that's okay. Ashton's story is no longer about Hollywood fame, but about human strength. And though the words "saying goodbye" sound final, his life today feels like a new beginning, one filled with quiet joy, purpose, and love. His journey shows that sometimes saying goodbye isn't about ending a story. It's about finally living it truthfully,